We are talking again with Vagaboots, who just is not saying it as it is like that, but he basically survived Kumbh Mela. Survived as a way of saying that it was overwhelming in many ways. Sensory, the number of people, everything else that comes with those type of situations in India. But also he got stuck into the stampede that happened sometime end of January, and some people were killed, unfortunately. And so it was a courageous act of his to follow his heart and go to the Kumbh Mela. He really wanted to do that. And he has had meaningful experiences in many ways, spiritual and non-spiritual, and now he's going to let that distill. So we just catch him just on the heels of his return to Europe from this trip, and it's still very fresh. So in that sense, it's a very exciting conversation. It's also very spontaneous and authentic. So join me in welcoming Vagaboots to the podcast, to the conversation today. And if you haven't done so, would you share this conversation with anyone you might think that who might be interested in? And also, if you haven't done so, if you could click subscribe, that also encourages us to continue posting these type of stories. Thank you for being with us. Welcome to Dhamma on the Sidewalk. Insights, interviews, and practical tips on the teachings of the Buddha for people of all walks of life, attuning, exploring, integrating the teachings in everyday life. Simple Dhamma for daily life. I'm Asoka, hosting Dhamma Capsule for people like you. Vagaboots, are you there?
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good too. I'm really excited about having this conversation with you because it's a totally different feel. I guess we're going to go into a completely different state of mind, as our previous conversation was on you having just completed a walk across India. Remind me of how many kilometers?
So the walk took place in 2023, and it was 1,800 kilometers.
1,800 kilometers in the north of India, right? From Dharamsala to Mumbai.
Exactly.
So that time we had that conversation. You had just basically just completed that walk, and then you returned to India. You returned back home.
I did.
You settled the mind about the experience, and then after a year there was this call about going back to India. Do I understand that correctly?
It is. After the walk, I had a lot to unpack because it was, there's this very abused expression, life-changing, but it was indeed. And somehow I thought that I could corner that experience and just put it in a box and go back to whatever I was doing before, let's say, quote unquote, civilian life. So I wrote a book, and then after I got a job, and just thinking that I would fit in as nothing had happened, but definitely everything happened. So
There was a call to go back, basically, to go back.
In general. In general, when you see something, you cannot unsee it. So then the date of the Kumbh Mela was approaching, which was beginning of January, mid-January 2025. There were a lot of signs that were just pointing all in that direction. I was busy with work, and I said I cannot go. I don't have holidays. I don't have leave. And then finally I got a call from a Baba that I met during my walk, and he said, "You can come and stay at my camp with other Babas." And honestly, this was an offer that was too good to pass on. So I don't know how I did. I was definitely blessed, and I managed to arrange my commitments and my obligations in the right way. And so I just shut up. One day I was working in this corporate setting, and next day I was in India, full on in the midst of a crowd of 40, 50-ish million people.
To put everyone in tune with the Kumbh Mela, this is the Maha Khumb Mela, which is happening every 144 years, something like this, correct?
Exactly.
And it's a very large, for those who don't know, who haven't heard about it, is a large gathering on the river Ganges, just a bit southern from Varanasi, if I'm correct.
So the Kumbh Mela is the largest gathering of people in the world. Literally, you can see it from space. So the attendance of this year's Kumbh Mela was, estimated between 400 and 500 people.
500 million.
In the span of about a month.
500 million, yes.
Yes, yeah. So this one, so the Kumbh Mela happens every 3 years in these 4 holy cities in India. One of them is Prayagraj. Then you have Ujjain, you have Nasik, right, and Haridwar. So these are the 4 holy cities where the Kumbh Mela is held every 3 years.
Right.
Every 12, you have, let's say, the main Kumbh Mela, which is held in Prayagraj, formerly known as Allahabad. And then every 144 years, you have the Maha Khumb Mela, which is basically there is a special alignment of planets, which is even more auspicious for people who bathe in Ganga on those dates, basically. So yeah, I was not planning on going, but all these signs and all these beautiful coincidences were pointing in that direction. I thought it was okay. I really need to go.
So in other words, you left from Europe and arrived in the chaos of Varanasi. And so there was what I mean here is that there was a call to go back to India, and the call is probably something that you have deep inside of you as well. It's a call for India. It's a call maybe to be on the road, but it's definitely a call to be in a sort of spiritual mandala that maybe is sort of more contextual in India in terms of your experiences also in India, recent experience with the walk and everything that is happening to you. So going to the Kumbh Mela, there were signs that were and people whom you knew that actually were also going to the Kumbh Mela. And so you took off. Can you put us a bit in, it's difficult, I guess, to put the Kumbh Mela into words, but I'm sure that you will do a good job at elaborate for us a bit. What does it mean to actually be on the river Ganges, surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people, bathing in the Ganges, spiritual ecstasy kind of a trip? Can you actually give us an idea put that into words?
Yeah. To be honest, I'm still a bit struggling with processing and defining the experience. I only spent 6 days there, so it was not a super long time. But and when I was planning on going there, I didn't really know what to expect because I've never experienced anything like that. But so I will try to banalize a bit and just kind of describe what I've observed and what was my daily experience. So just to get there from Varanasi, which is not far, took me hours and hours because the whole city is blocked and there were no ways to access. So at some point, I had to stop the car and I just had to walk towards the site where I was supposed to stay, and that took me hours already. You know, I got a couple of lifts on a motorbike, but the distances and the time just to get to the site where just the magnitude was out of scale. Mm-hmm. So a friend who attended described it fairly well, said it's an event where nothing really happens, yet everything happens. Because there's no special celebration except for the royal baths. So the royal baths are, you have thousands of sadhus. They gather a certain time on specific dates that are, basically dictated on this alignment of planets. And they all head towards this Triveni Sangam, where all the three holy rivers meet. Mm-hmm. And it's a very small, stretch of land. It's very, very small. So you have hundreds of thousands of people pushing all in the same direction. And this is why, unfortunately, you even have stampedes, which happen. And we can talk about it later.
Yeah.
But all these sadhus, they had, and you have all the faithful and all the curious onlookers, and they also, everybody's pushing. So let's say it's the main event. But in the rest of the time, so those are only 3-4 days. But the rest of the time, you have a lot of camps of Babas and congregations. I don't think I have the right terminology to describe, what they are. But then you have people coming from all over India and just to bathe in the Ganga. But then sometimes they don't have the means for a hotel or for a guest house or a tent, and they just sleep on the ground outside. And it was cold at night. So during the day, you have these camps with Babas, and they're smoking, and they have pujas, or they just chill. Or at least, from an ignorant point of view, I'm just my knowledge is limited, so I don't have the means to describe exactly what goes on literally every day. But there is a lot of everything and there's a lot of nothing.
Right.
So in those days, I was just showing up early in the morning and, taking my pictures, and then just, let's say, approaching the people that I thought had an energy that was compatible with mine. You have all these Naga Babas, these people who renounce to their, let's say, a worldly life, and they're covered in ashes, and they walk around naked. They don't really own things, and you have thousands and thousands of them. Again, I'm not please take my opinion as one of the millions of opinions that are possible on this earth. Some of them, they might be the real deal, and some of them are just, glorified beggars. I don't know. But it was definitely interesting to see people who made such a drastic life choice. You have Babas that are keeping their arms raised for 10 years, 20 years. And then you have some standing Babas. You have men who, even when they sleep on some kind of suspended rope structure. So they're never laying flat. So they're always standing. Then you have Babas that only eat one specific type of food, either only cow milk or only potatoes, or and then there was a Baba who graduated, had a PhD in computer science from a Bangalore university. There was literally everything. And it happens at the same time. So for a person who has never seen this, like me, and who's familiar with Hinduism but is not a Hindu, I was definitely fascinated, but at times overwhelmed.
It's a lot. The energy it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of people, and it's a lot of constant contact as well, right? Sensory. It's overwhelming. It must be sensory overwhelming.
And there is smoke, there's dust.
Yes.
There are fires burning constantly. The whole time I was there was something burning.
Right.
So you have this Hindu fire in these small shrines, and these dhunis, they're called. They were constantly burning. One of the most beautiful things I've witnessed. It was in one of these akharas. There was 100 dhunis with monks or priests. I don't have the right terminology. Throwing seeds, these fires, for hours and hours, and chanting and praying. And that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, because that prayer was so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But again, but the smoke was suffocating because you have 100 fires burning for hours, and it was just. But the energies were absolutely all over the place. And let me tell you, this is my perception. These energies were not necessarily all positive.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah. So when I walked to the Triveni Sangam, which is literally the beating heart of this event, I felt overwhelmed with joy and with happiness. I had tears in my eyes. I'm not even Hindu, so it just felt fantastic. Mm-hmm. And you see so many cheery people, happy families, splashing each other with the Ganga water. That was just wonderful. But after a few days, you have millions of people. It takes very little to just throw off balance all these energies. And some of them were absolutely very powerful. You have very powerful meditators, very powerful Babas. But again, at some point I was feeling affected by these very strong energies, because probably, I don't know if I was not able to handle them, or it was just a consequence.
I think this is absolutely normal. It's a lot of people, and it's a lot of exuberant also. It's a lot of exuberance, spiritual exuberance in a way. But what I wanted to take you on is, you essentially, you're a photographer. So there was this aspect that on the one hand, you're an adventurer, and you like, it's courageous and it's adventurous, and it's a way of exploring human events, I would say. The way also you threw yourself on the road and walked across India. I mean, it takes courage to actually go and do that on a solo trip. But essentially, you're also a photographer. So two separate events that we've been talking and conversing about. The first was the talk. The second one now is Khumb Mela. There seemed to be a pattern of spiritual exploration, and at the same time catching people's expressions, and there's something about evolving in your photography exploration. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
So I realized that there are a couple of things that give me joy, and that are the key to open new doors. So one is walking, and one is taking pictures. I'm normally fairly lazy person. So when I'm not walking, I like to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. Believe it. Feel free to believe it or not believe it.
I like the authenticity.
No,
Appreciate
I'm
it.
totally honest. I'm totally honest. But I realized that I'm blessed to have this little voice that says you should do this in this way, because I find it appealing and it gives me the right angle to get deep in a certain way of research. And so photography, it gives me the excuse to get closer to people, because I'm generally, I wouldn't say I'm introverted, but I'm not as outgoing as people think I am.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a camera in my hand, I have just the perfect excuse to get close to you and just to say, hey, what's your deal? What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And that curiosity, that is definitely there. So the camera is like a key to open that kind of door. And the walking is the activity that, first I have to exhaust myself, and then I get to a place where I can be more aligned and at peace and balance with other, elements. I'm a horrible meditator because, again, this monkey mind of mine is just hard to tame.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow, this exhaustion is the way to tame it for a while. And it gives me also this sense of dynamic. I'm not just sitting in in an ashram. It's definitely not. I'm not undermining that kind of practice. It's just saying that this more active practice works better for me. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
So
the combination of photography and it's just a way of getting closer to people.
And now you've got so close to people that you were involved into this stampede when the news broke that there was a stampede at the Kumbh Mela, and some of your friends were a little concerned what is happening with you, and then trying to give you news. A stampede in India on the Ganges River. I mean, on the sort of a Wild West part of India. It must be provoking some sort of strong emotions, is it? Must be a little unusual, isn't?
Yeah.
Can you say something about that?
I feel super bad for the people who, got killed in this stampede. And it's not clear how many there were, because there were very clashing numbers. It's like some people said, it's only 10. Some people said it's 40. Some people said it's in the hundreds. My fear is that we will never know exactly how many there were.
Mm-hmm.
So I was out very early in the morning, 3 a.m., because the second royal bath was going to happen. And I was with a group. And I was basically with a BBC crew that was filming a documentary. And then we had a Baba from my Akara, where I was sleeping in this camping, who was, let's say, a bit spearheading the expedition and was opening doors for us, basically, giving us access to places. And so I think the walk towards the river for the bathing of the sadhus was supposed to start maybe around 4, something like 5, maybe sunrise time. And at some point we were already in the crowd, and there's like a spike in the energy, and you see that the sadhus got all of a sudden very, very nervous. And then somebody, on their phone says, "Oh, there has been there are casualties," basically. And so this nervous state of mind of the crowd just kept building up, and there was a part that, let's say, was not pleasant. I was mentally prepared for stampedes, to be honest, because that was something that's somebody told me, it's like, whatever you do, don't fall.
Don't fall. Oh yes, yeah, good
don't
point.
fall. Yeah, so I already got that piece of advice, and at some point we were in the middle of a crowd of, I don't know, millions, because it was impossible to quantify, and we were stuck. But then there were like streams of people pushing from the left, from the right, and the friction, the pressure was painful. So I'm a very tall person, so I was fairly okay and fairly safe. But a person of average height would have had way harder. It would have been much harder.
Oh, yeah.
So at some point, in a couple of occasions, I thought to myself, "Oh, this is a very stupid way of dying." And so I'm not over dramatizing. I'm just saying that it was it was a bit dangerous. So the crew I was with, they had a safety person, like let's say kind of a bodyguard, and then we had the Baba basically kind of asked one of these camps that were completely shut to let us in, and let the crowd dissipate for a bit. So we took shelter in this akara for a couple of hours, and let's say we let the most dangerous time. We just ride it out basically. But just to go back to our camp, it took hours. Some people said, "Oh, the river got its sacrifice," referring to the casualties. I don't know if I think that way, but definitely in my head, and the way I saw it is like there was the tipping point where I saw a shift in the energy of the whole crowd for the coming days. It got darker.
It got into like a darker mode, right? I know you being explorer in the sense that you have the courage to actually follow your heart and just go on the road. It's courage. I think there is no other word to that. There is that part, but then when these energies start to change, and I guess it happened for you as well, you kind of maintain discernment and wisdom, and you realize maybe it's time that I start to make a move out. And that's when you realize that it had become quite difficult to actually find a way out of the maze. It was becoming like a maze. And I remember connecting as well with you. So and I remember you saying, "I feel stuck and I don't know how to you physically were, but it's the sense that we got from for a very quick conversation that you said, "Oh, I feel stuck. I don't know how am I going to get out of it, but I know that, and I feel that it's time for me to get out of it," because effectively the energy had changed. And I think from what I know, I've heard of other people who have been at the Khumb Mela who actually said similar things, and it took a while to actually dissipate a bit. I think maybe now the stampede and that energy has cleared out a bit. But how did you actually get out?
That's also another good story. So I didn't really decide how many days I was going to stay. I had this open invitation, and I just said I will decide day by day. After maybe 5-6 days, first of all, I got very sick, so I had a high fever. After coming back from shooting, in the morning, some pictures. I just basically laid in bed for 24 hours. I decided, okay, I'm going to fast. I'm going to meditate. So next day I was perfect. I was fine. But all these strange energies and the fact that I got sick and the fact that the air was suffocating in a sight of millions of people, I said, okay, this is my sign. This is my clue. I believe. So my next stop after Prayagraj was Bodh Gaya, which is only 260 kilometer thing, if I remember correctly, and it took me 13 and a half hours. So I walked with my backpack, and then if I saw somebody on a motorbike, I said, "Can you give me a lift?" Just as it happens in India, and people are always so generous and kind, and you always find somebody that's going to help you. Always. This is the main lesson. It's like you will always find somebody that helps you. And I get to the train station, and the first available train for me was it was called Khumb Mela Express or something like this, and it was all for the pilgrims. It was super cheap. I mean, I think I took a train whose main destination was Kolkata, and all the way to Kolkata was 230 rupees, basically $2.5.
So just 1 second for those who might not know the location of the geographic positioning of
sure.
what we're talking about. Yeah. So Varanasi is north of Bodh Gaya. Bodh Gaya is about it takes usually about 3 hours, 4 hours to go south from Varanasi to reach Bodh Gaya, more or less. Or 5 hours by road. I mean, it depends now also what kind of train one takes. So Bodh Gaya is south from Bodh Gaya, from Varanasi. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
So this very short distance took me a couple of trains, a few motorbike lifts, a few kilometers walked, but the main train rides, I just sat on the floor in a crowd of hundreds of people that were just standing or sitting or squatting, and honestly, it was not comfortable. It was kind of enjoyable. In the Indian train rides, the theater of life just unraveling in front of your eyes.
And then you reach Bodh Gaya late at night. And did you? Well, I'm interested in hearing from you the distinction or the type of, beside the fact that you were tired, in any event you had gone through quite a lot actually, from Khumb Mela and from the Stampede energy and everything, but beside that, what's your take? What can you give us some insight or some reflections on the distinction of energy between because Bodh Gaya is as well a highly spiritual place, gatherings the whole year long of Buddhist, and so what was your impression, beside the fact you had been to Bodh Gaya already, so it was not your first time, was it?
No, it was.
Oh, it was your first time. Okay. So can you give us some insights on how did you feel about that energy in Bodh Gaya?
Bodh Gaya was quite busy. I mean, compared to what probably the baseline is, because there were some events taking place, but I mean, compared to the major madness I was in, that felt like going to a monastery, basically, even though it was quite hectic anyway. No, the energy was way more streamlined, and let's say was more one type of energy. You go to the body tree, and you just sit 20 minutes. Whatever turmoil you may have in your soul, it dissipates very quick. So my fatigue vanished in a matter of a day, basically. Uh-huh. But because the monks, and again, it's a busy place, Bodh Gaya, but it's nowhere near that level of energy. And again, I didn't, in my experience, the energy I perceived in Bodh Gaya was just of one type. You have.
You mean it's more compact? It's more compact. It's more compact. Yes, it's more consistent and coherent, because that's what I try. That's what I hear from you. Yes, but Gaya can be quite wild as well. It can be quite crowded, but yes, the energy there probably is very. I don't know. I haven't been to Khumb Mela, so I can only compare by listening. By listening to you, knowing Bodh Gaya but not knowing Khumb Mela, I can maybe help you put some words there. But Yeah, compact is the word that comes closer to maybe translate
You
what you're
feel
saying.
that all these monks and all the pilgrims, they're there and they're all basically on the same page. Whereas the Kumbh Mela was like a whole rainbow of
I see.
emotions. And it's like Kumbh Mela is like a fair. Mela, the word Mela means fair. So
good point.
So there was also a lot of like very mundane aspects, like the sellers, and you have the acrobats. You have these children walking on ropes,
Right.
And then you have the snake charmers, and then you have the barbers, like shaving people in the middle of like dirt, like on the ground. And so you have also this very mundane. People selling malas and people selling trinkets of all kinds, and you have the beggars and you have the thieves and you have the people selling ice cream and chai and snacks.
Yeah. It's an enormous fair. It's an enormous between brackets spiritual marketplace. Yeah.
I've seen something that I never saw in almost 10 trips, like over the last 20 years to India. And I've seen lepers. Begging. And there was I thought that I was ready and that I had seen it all. And, with these open wounds, it felt insane. It felt like I was back 100 years,
Yeah, it must have been quite intense. I get it. I'm quite intense. Maybe it's not. It doesn't even carry the whole meaning. It's still.
No, it's funny because I was expecting something different. I was not disappointed, but the people I met who returned from the Kumbh Mela before I went there, everybody said, "So how was it?" I was very eager, and they said, "Oh, it's interesting." And in my mind, I couldn't really figure how come they were so nonchalant about something so big. And now that I'm back, I would probably say the same. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I get. And then so now the Kumbh Mela chapter of your exploration is closed. You're still distilling some of and you basically can we share that already, that you're also involved in completing the writing or the editing of a book regarding your initial walk through India, the 1811 kilometers that we were talking about earlier, and also that you're about to bring yourself back on the Indians' roads, this time from walking from Mumbai to Kanyakumari sometime later this in the spring. And so the explorer spirit continues. Can you share a bit about all of this?
100%. So the book is it's in the final stages. So the book about my first walk, and it's been a very beautiful experience, to be honest, because it was a dialogue between the person who walked and then the person who went back. So with a different knowledge, with a different awareness, and there was definitely a lot of compassion towards that kid. I was not a kid, but I felt like I was way more naive when I was walking. And there was definitely challenges, but there was also like a lot of blessings that I couldn't really process at that time. So anyway, this chapter is nearly come to an end, and I cannot wait to share the book. I'm going to give you a worldwide scoop. I'm going to disclose now the title of the book. And the title of the book
woo! We're lucky. We're lucky today.
Yeah, and the title of the book is Horn, Okay, Please.
Which comes from the writing on the trucks, right, in India.
Yes, and yes. So if you have been to India, you will see this, not perfectly grammatically correct slogan be on the back of every truck. Horn okay please, and beautifully decorated on the back of the trucks. And that was the mantra that I could see every day, driving past me maybe 100 times a day. I like the sound. I like that it's a bit nonsense, and I like that it's so India. So if you've been to India, you know what it is.
Exactly.
So that hopefully the book is going to be out soon. And yeah, I feel that finally, as my intention was always to walk all of India, but I stopped halfway through. Definitely, I felt like there was something incomplete.
And
I wanted to.
Yeah, would you share the jacket of the book with us? Or not yet.
I have only a temporary version. Maybe that one it will be out soon anyway.
Okay.
I think it's good.
All right, we'll be patient. We'll be patient.
Yeah, no, I'm known to change my mind on a whim. So maybe I kept this cover for the last few months. Maybe last minute I will change it. I don't know, but I don't think so. But I'm ready to go back because I know and I feel that so the walk is not complete. And definitely I felt like since I've done this walk, I've gained a lot of very good karma, not to merits of mine, but simply by the fact that I was on the road in India.
Right.
Because this walk attracted my tribe, people like you that I wasn't normally in touch with. I met super interesting people who have done wonderful things, impressive things. I've met two men who walked. It's interesting because one did the Ganga Yatra, so the pilgrimage along the Ganga, and did, let's say, from A to B, and the other went from B to A. So they met both these men in Prayagraj, and they had done unknowingly to each other the opposite stretches of the same pilgrimage. And I love that I was there in the middle to witness both these people meeting there. And there's just a tribe, a community of people. I don't know if they're Dharma seekers, if they're just Dharma livers that just live their lives. And I love that I'm finally in sync with these people because I'm closer to the, I guess, what I'm supposed to do with my life.
That's a good point. If you were to, so you're about to go on a walk again, and that's going to start sometime in April, if I'm correct.
Yes, exactly.
And walking from Mumbai to Kanyakumari, it is expected, knowing the geography and knowing a bit the weather patterns, that you'll have probably completely different conditions than the walk from North India to Mumbai. It's going to be more humid. It's going to be probably more.
Yeah.
I would just wanted to say more mountainous and different. It's going to be completely different. You're going to cross India in a completely. You've done that walk already, have you? You've walked to the south already, or have you?
I've traveled to the south, yes.
Oh, you've traveled to the south, okay.
Yeah, but I never walked in the south. So definitely I would be crossing Maharashtra, Goa, Kerala, and I think Karnataka. I know the starting point and I know the end point, which is Kanyakumari, the southern tip of India, but I'm not 100% decided on the route. So let's say the easiest, the probably most pleasurable route would be the scenic one, just by the coast. If I will feel that it's not too touristy, I will probably stick to that one because I can only imagine that's just beautiful. But we will see. If I find it a bit too crowded or not exactly as authentic as the first walk was, I would just probably move inland 20 kilometers and just follow again, going south.
So we'll have another. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Keep going.
I expect humidity, probably a bit of rain. I'm not really worrying about the weather. It's going to be what it's going to be, because I couldn't do it earlier. Definitely would have been much better, much more convenient to do it in January or February. But I have other commitments, and I'm almost done with those commitments. And
okay.
Yeah, I just look forward to be on the road and to see the sea on my right side.
Yeah, that's a nice way. So I would like to thank you for your time this time. But before we close, I would like you to mention something that we haven't mentioned yet, something that comes to mind regarding these two separate events that you took you to your heart, and that one took you a week or 10 days, the other one took you 3 months, but they all became part of your life exploration, and you're seeking being true to your heart and seeking some sort of truth in your life as well, closer to whatever works for you. So as also now the Kumbh Mela is also behind you, and you're in transition towards another event. Can you mention something? How do you foresee the next walk, or if there is anything that lessons learned or anything that we haven't mentioned yet regarding the third event coming into your life soon?
I feel like all these beads in a mala, they're connected by a thread, and I think you see the pattern only when you have 3, 4, 10 events. And at the moment, what I see as a common thread is just an opening to the world, to love, to be honest, to just life, and the fact that I feel more in the flow. I don't know if I will always be walking like a madman on roads in India, but definitely this part of my life entails walking and entails just being as honest as I can. And so, yeah, it's opening, honesty, and just being more authentic. I'm realizing that it probably a bit too late in my life, but my 40s have proved me that growth in this stage of my life is not about adding, but it's about removing.
That's very wise. That's a very wise comment. Yeah.
I realized that I need less, both in a material way, but in general, less, fewer masks, fewer illusions, even fewer friends, to be honest. That's an interesting. Sorry, it's an interesting consequence of going on a certain path that some people are just naturally left behind. And it's not even painful; it's just a consequence. But yeah, the lesson is just that we need much less than we think, and there is one of the concepts that I explore in the book is that the trap of more and the comfort of less.
The trap of more and the comfort of less.
The trap of more, yeah, because having more is a trap.
Yes,
is a vortex, and there is a comfort that I'm discovering and actually enjoy in having less and being less.
Yes.
So in shedding these layers of ego and masks, and I was really always trying to convince everybody that please like me, or please be my friend, or hire me or something. Now there is a like a peace in the fact that I am who I am, and as long as I know that I'm doing my best, it's enough.
How nice! That's really a nice final words. Yeah. So I know these are not final words. As final words for the conversation today. we look forward to hearing more about you as you hit the road again, or at least not hit the road, but take on the road, and definitely at the exit of that road, because we will just follow you while you're doing that, while you're walking. But definitely, we'll meet again by the time you complete that next walk. So Khumb Mela, you can say gratitude to the Khumb Mela as well, to have shown you that you can make these things happen, and that they are all pointers to your own true dharma. They are part.
Thank you so much.
They are part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but my gratitude is for the Kumbh Mela, definitely, but also for, again, the possibility to have talks like the one we just had.
Yes. Well, I mean, thank you for that. Actually, for me, if I may share, because I'm often, I'm rarely actually asked this, but it's the podcast for me. These conversations for me are very meaningful in the sense that I am trying to bring up simplicity of how people seek to find some sort of authenticity in their life. But authenticity is actually not very complicated. It's more spiritual authenticity, and how they trying to express that in their lives. So the podcast is very humble, and I'm really very grateful for you to have given us time. But also, as you know, I'm also a renunciant. So it's when you say it's the comfort of definitely the comfort of less. You definitely talk to the converted, in the sense that it has become in the sense that quality is definitely more important, and it goes a bit against the grain of the times. I mean, of the consumerism. It goes a bit against this certain streamlined ways of behaviors, but that's okay. We can always remain true to what it is that calls us to seek a truth, because eventually there's a certainty that we're all going to leave, and when we leave everything behind. So when we leave everything behind, we can just have the freedom of having less, and also make other people's life easier when we actually eventually go.
We're not very popular, because the message of like, oh, you don't need as much, so you don't need 2 cars and the fancy phone and this and that, is definitely anti-consumeristic. So yeah, we're not very popular.
We're not popular, but we are. It's a way of being respected, and eventually we are just pointing to a directions where, in time, everyone gets to that. Even if you, I don't know if you heard about the few last messages of Steve Jobs before he left and before he transitioned. He was saying exactly the same thing. So it's in time, with wisdom. Sometimes things take us into that direction. So anyway, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon again.